On today's podcast,
it feels good to push past your fear and just do it. Put yourself out there. You don't know what you're going to miss out on if you don't try.
the truth is, adding value will never go out of style.
This podcast is brought to you by iWatch Security. iWatch Security. Get the savings and service that you deserve.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for another Five Things podcast here with, a longtime friend now, Amy Simon. And thank you for coming out today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Definitely going to be talking about your Five Things topic. You've been in modeling and acting, and you've been doing that for a long time. So you're here to share some tips with people thinking about getting into that field or their children getting into the field. And appreciate you sharing some stuff here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. What took you so long to have me on the show?
Well, I mean, it's just you have a little bit of a bad attitude. No, it's just, I don't know. I guess we just didn't know each other well enough, but I'm glad that you're here now.
I had to prove myself.
You had to prove yourself,
Worthy.
And you've earned the right to be on the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I respect you a lot. I really do. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. So thank you. And
super.
Thank you, Raphael.
You're welcome.
Definitely. I've had another second podcast today. So you and the other guest are definitely going to draw some crowds, I'm sure, today. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so excited about that. So a little bit of your background, if you don't mind. You grew up Kentucky, right?
I grew up in northern Kentucky.
Okay.
Right across the river from Cincinnati, Ohio, literally 5 minutes across the river.
Okay.
So my dad taught at my high school. I barely graduated high school. Both of my parents are teachers, actually.
Okay.
And I had zero desire to go to college. I always knew that I wanted to be a model. And I thought that's all I was going to do was just model. But it spiraled into what I've been doing for the last 20 years, which is amazing to me.
Right. I mean, you seem to have a lot of freedom and flexibility with your career, so.
I do, but it took a while to get there.
Sure.
It's not easy. Like any industry, it's not easy. And you got to put in the time and the hours and do the free jobs or the low budget jobs and basically do anything you can.
Sure.
Just to get work and get in the door.
Get your foot in the door. It's interesting you bring that up. A lot of people that I've talked to someone, specifically I talked to someone recently where they were, I don't want to call them out. They do something and I'm like, well, and they're very proud of themselves and they're pricing it a certain way. And it's like, well, okay, well, who were some of the people you've done it for? And it's like, well, I've done it for one person. And it's like, you might want to get your foot in the door, get some of your product out there. When I first started doing security, it's like I should be one of the cheapest prices you get because you don't know what you're getting, right? And you don't have the reputation yet. You don't have the brand. You don't have the expertise. So I think that's a good point is don't be so proud. You want to build your brand. And then once your brand becomes powerful.
But even for me, even though I've been doing this 25 years, I still take the smaller jobs, the lower budget jobs, and I take the big jobs and I treat them all the same. So whether it's a $500 job or a $5,000 job or whatever, I'm just putting numbers out there. I'm going to do my best either way because for me, that client's budget is what it is. That doesn't mean they should get a lesser version of me.
Definitely.
So I always do the best that I can, but I encourage everybody to, if you want to get in this industry, take all the jobs, because for me, if it's a lower budget job or maybe a student film or something like that, you're learning. So I look at it as you're learning and getting paid to learn at the same time.
Totally.
Which, I mean, where else can you do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a great point. And the thing is, you're putting product out there. Someone may see that let's say low budget deal you did, but then they see you and they wouldn't have seen you otherwise. And that leads you to a better deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's interesting in our industry. Some of the rates haven't changed in years. So some of the rates are still the same that they were 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
And then some of them have completely changed. So it's all over the place. There's no, and Raphael would know too. It's just the budgets are all over the place. And it's, do you want the job or not?
Sure.
And in my situation, blonde hair, blue eyes, there's a million of me. So it's like, okay, you don't want the job? We'll get the next girl to do it, you know?
Sure.
So I don't have that. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I have that power to, if they really want me, I can negotiate and get travel pay, gas money, all that kind of stuff. But
Sure.
other times they're like, nah, we'll use somebody else.
Well, I think especially early on, you got to put product out there so people can see what you can do, and
Yeah.
that can lead to other things.
And just what you were saying earlier, I just like put your pride aside. I don't think I've ever really had that. I never walk in on a shoot and think I'm Amy Simon.
Right.
You know, even the last film I did, one of the DPs, you know, we had 2 guys that were shooting. He's the director of photography, and he's like, you know, you're the lead on this film, right? And I was like, am I? I don't know. And he goes,
Right.
yeah, you're the lead. Like, you know, you have the most days on, you know, on camera or whatever. I don't know. And I was like, yeah, I don't really look at it like that, because I feel like, you know, the PA has an important job, and the director and the assistant director and the person that has 2 lines. None of this could be possible without everybody coming together and doing the job. So that's nice that I'm a lead in the film, but I don't look at it like that. And there was one other time that I was working as an extra on a commercial in Miami. I lived in Miami for about South Florida for about 15 years.
Okay.
And that's where I got a lot of my work and a lot of my training and business. But I'll never forget being on a commercial shoot, and I was a featured extra. I was getting pretty decent money, but one of the girls that was a principal on the job, she was like, oh my gosh, like, you're working as an extra today? And I was like, yeah, what do you mean? And she's like, you're Amy Simon. Like, what are you doing working as an extra? And I'm like, well, I'm a single mom, 1, and 2, like, I mean, what else would I be doing? Sitting at
Yeah.
home watching The Price is Right, which I love.
Right.
But I'd rather be working than, you know, I don't see it that way. Now, some people see it as like, no, once you get to a certain level, you don't go back down. You don't do these other jobs. I see it differently. I just feel like a job is a job. It's a networking opportunity. It's more, you know, experience for me. Try something new, and that job could lead to the next job. So
Right.
that's how I see it.
That's how I would see it.
Yeah.
So I'm here to work. This is what I do for a living.
That's
you
what
know?
I do, and I love it. Why would
Right.
I, you know, what else would I be doing today? You know, I'll never forget that. Oh my gosh, what are you doing here? You know, and I'm like, same thing you're doing here, working.
Sure. And I can understand where they're coming from. Maybe they,
I
you
can't,
know,
and it almost like it was flattering. I was like, oh, that's really like, that's nice. But
you know, I think it comes back to ultimately, Julie makes fun of me when I say ultimately. I'm trying to stop saying that. So
hi, Julie. Love you.
I believe that your talent level and your expertise and your knowledge and your networking, those things are probably going to take you to a level that you don't have to posture like that. That's my intuition is
Yeah.
telling me that. It's, you know, Tom Cruise, you know, and again, there's only one Tom Cruise, right?
Who
But-
I've met, who I stood next to, is close to Raphael on Rock of Ages in Miami. That's a whole nother story. That was amazing.
Okay. But, you know, I think your talent, your work ethic, your drive, your professionalism, those are all things you can control. And I believe from an outsider looking in, you're probably going to go to a certain level in spite of all the posturing and maybe even attitude. Like some people might call you over somebody like that because they're going to be like, oh, yeah, she's too good to do this for us. Let's call Amy. You know, she's always great to work with. She's always fun and does her job, shows up on time, you know, handles her business.
I appreciate that. And that is a reason why I worked so much in South Florida. At least I worked for one of the biggest advertising agencies in the country all the time because I showed up early. I brought all my stuff. I never had an attitude. I did what they wanted me to do. Boom, 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 you know.
Right.
Sometimes I had to, you know, I would bring my daughter with me. That's the other thing too, being a single mom. Sometimes I had to bring my daughter with me on some of these jobs. And sometimes she would get thrown into the commercial. They paid her. Oh, I made sure she got
Oh,
paid.
that's cool.
But
I'd be bringing her to every job.
well, yeah, sometimes I would. And then when she got a little bit older, 9, 10, she didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, you can't force anybody to do this,
Sure.
to do this industry. So like when people want to get their kids into it, I'm like, do they want to do it?
Right.
Do they like it? Are they happy doing it? Because if they're not, do not make them.
Sure.
You're going to force them into something they don't want to do. And that comes across on the camera.
Sure.
If they don't want to be there, that's going to come across on the camera. You can't fake that part of it.
Right.
And fortunately, the kids that I do work with, they love it. They are absolutely a joy to work with, and they love it. But just don't force your kids into something they don't want to do. When my daughter said she didn't want to do anymore, and she was making money that I gave her when she graduated from high school, I gave her all of her money she made. We know the years that she did this, but she didn't want to do it. I was like, okay, breaking my heart, but that's okay. Like,
It is what it is, right?
it is what it is.
It's, one of the things, and I've said this before, but if you slam me into an admin position, I'm not good at spreadsheets and
What's that?
a lot of that type of stuff. I would have never been a really good CPA or a bookkeeper. I don't enjoy that. So if I had to sit there for 8 hours a day, you're not going to get remotely close to the best Brian that I could in a different role.
Right.
And so I think it's a great point, and maybe you're going to get into this in the 5 things, is that you have to, I don't know that you're going to love 100% of anything you do forever. Anything. I could have cheesecake every meal for 3 times a day. After 3, 4, 5, 6 months, it's like, man, I would love a pizza.
I could eat brownies every day.
I love cheesecake. You love brownies apparently, but
The brownies from Food Lion that have the Reese cup peanut butter icing on them that literally cost like $4 are the most
That's your
amazing.
jam? All right.
Oh, they're so good. They're so good. You get 3 of them.
the point being that you want to put yourself in a position to win. And I try to talk to, and I'm going to ask you a question point blank, what's something you might tell to a 17-year-old getting ready to graduate high school? Let's just dive into it. What is advice that you would give to a 18-year-old Amy getting ready to go out into the world? What if you go back in time? What is one thing you would tell yourself?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's pretty cute actually. Somebody that I graduated from high school is putting together a program for all the elementary schools where I grew up. There's only 3. So I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, 20,000 people.
Okay.
We wore shoes. I didn't ride horses. I didn't date my brother. That kind of stuff. You get all this Kentucky jokes, whatever. But anyway, it was a great town. And what was my point about that?
We're going back in time, and you're talking to yourself.
Steve,
yeah.
My friend Steve called me, who I haven't seen in 100 years, and he was like, "Hey, I'm putting together this, video for the elementary school, talking about people that went after their dreams or did something cool with their life." And I was
cool.
like, "Me? Like, you want to pick me?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, it's pretty cool what you do." And I was like, dude, I graduated with guys that went to freaking Yale and Harvard and all these Ivy League colleges. They're making bank. They're financial advisors, doctors, lawyers. All of them are uber successful. And he's like, yeah, well, I think what you do is really cool. And I'm
it's
okay.
a different path,
So, but like I said, I knew in high school that this is what I wanted to do. I had no idea how I was going to do that, but I knew that this was what I wanted to do. So I would say, just most importantly, if you have that, that thing in your heart that you want to do, I believe that is God-given, and I believe that you need to go after it and find a way to do it. Figure it out. So I graduate high school, and I'll just say the very first agency that I met, I was 18. And I drove to Columbus, Ohio to meet with this agency because I had met her dad, the girl that owns it. I met her dad. I used to work at Morton's of Chicago, steak restaurant in Cincinnati. And I would meet a ton of celebrities and athletes and whatever. It was a great time. So anyway, we had a lot of fun. But this guy used to come in. He was so sweet. And he owned a big trucking company. And he was like, my daughter has an agency in Columbus, you should go meet her. And I was like, okay. So I drove up there with a friend of mine, and this girl looked at me, and she was just like, so you need to lose weight, and you should probably get liposuction in your face. I was 18 years old and I was like,
What?
I don't want to get liposuction in my face. What? So I was freaking crushed. I was embarrassed because she
Right.
said this in front of my friend. I was
Wow.
mortified. And
Right.
so I left. And you know what? It motivated me though to lose weight. I mean, I wasn't like huge or anything, but you know, it motivated me to lose weight. If you want to be in this industry, I'm sorry, you have to be a certain size and a certain look, and that's just the way it is. So if you don't like that, you know, which the industry has changed a lot.
Well, I was going
over
to
the
say,
years.
especially back in that time frame,
It's changed a lot.
It seems to be opening up to try to appeal to more people.
Oh yeah, we're going to
you
talk
know.
about that.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'm talking 25, 30 years ago, whatever,
Sure.
that this was happening. So I lost the weight, and then I just met with a photographer in Cincinnati. I did a photo shoot. I was actually just doing a photo shoot for a boyfriend of mine at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the photographer was like, hey, you should send these in to a modeling agency. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to do that. And that was when they shot on film. So he developed the photos and gave them
Sure.
to me in black and white. Everything was black and white back then.
Interesting.
So he gave them to me and he's like, here's the agency. Send them in. You mail the hard copy into the agency. Everything's different now.
So different, yeah.
So I mailed them in and, you know, they signed me and I was like, cool, what do? I don't know what I'm doing. And I booked a few little jobs here and there. But anyway, going back to your question of what would I tell like 17, 18-year-old Amy, believe in yourself more, have more confidence.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was a thing. I was so incredibly shy
Mm-hmm.
and insecure and didn't think I was good enough, even though I had all these people telling me like, do this, you're good, you can do it. Yeah. You know, and I was like, no.
You know, that's a big deal. Like a lot of, and I think we can all look back when you talk to people in their 40s and 50s, let's say, I think you can, speaking for me and a lot of people I've talked to, you can, when you look back, that's a great point because it's easy to be self-conscious about what you perceive everybody else is like, or, well, this guy has this, or this girl has this. And, you know, we're all walking around with a little bit of uncertainty, especially when you're 18. I mean, you know, you're trying to find your way, you're trying to figure stuff out, and you're so hard on yourself, you know. That's a great point.
Absolutely. And I had, I kind of on my own, I mailed in some photos to Elder Beerman, which was a department store long time ago. It was like a McAlpin's. Oh, they don't have that here. Like a Macy's, I guess,
Okay.
you know, in Ohio. And I mailed in my photos to them. I don't even know how I got the contact info or whatever.
Right.
And
Just
they
trying.
they hired me.
Wow, okay.
And so I had never done a catalog shoot or anything like that. And then I show up and I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Sure.
I don't, you know, and I go into this makeup, you know, the green room, makeup room with all these gorgeous models that were like flown in from Chicago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing here? This is so weird. This is so scary. I was scared to death and went out and did my thing on camera. And I was just, they never hired me again because I was so scared and insecure. And like you said, I was looking at these other girls thinking like, well, I'm not, you know, good enough. I can't be here. But they hired me. They already hired me.
Yeah, you were already hired, yeah.
And I still am like comparing myself to these other girls thinking like, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. I was just really scared and insecure and shy. And then I didn't end up doing anything for years, several years. I didn't do anything with it. I just kind of got away from it. And then I tried to take like some college classes and that's not my thing.
You just weren't really feeling anything else.
No, I didn't know what to do. And then I just decided to pack up my car at 22 and drive to Florida by myself with $500. And that's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
But that's what I did. And so honestly, after that, then I had my daughter. When I was 24, I had my daughter. And something told me, like, get back into this. This is what I want you to do. Get back into it. I heard a commercial on the radio, on a Christian radio station, that this big church in Fort Lauderdale was having this Christians in Media workshop seminar thing. It was free. I was like, whoa, that sounds kind of cool.
Right.
So I went to that. And then one of the breakout sessions was with this lady, Linda Zern. And what was the blonde that was on Saturday Night Live? The real funny blonde. What was her name? Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to think about it. I can see her face, but she was like the blonde in the 90s.
I think I know who you're talking about. I'm not going to know the name though.
Darn it. But she was there with Linda and they were doing like this little breakout session. And then Linda promoted her workshop, which was how to audition for commercials, basically how to get into the industry. And I was like, I need to take that workshop. I need to take that workshop. Well, I'm like broke single mom at this point.
Sure.
And the workshop was like $450 or something. This was 20 years ago,
Yeah.
almost. And I'm like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But somehow I need to get that money.
Figure out how.
And do this workshop. So finally I did. I took the workshop. First day I was there, there was probably 12, 13 people in the class. I was petrified. I was scared to death. Like I hated it. I hated it. When like people would come up one at a time to do like their little scene or whatever for their fake commercial or whatever, I would literally like hide in the corner, like maybe she won't see me, and like kind of, and she'd be like, okay, who hasn't gone yet? And I'm just like, I don't know. I think everybody's gone, And she's like, Amy, you haven't gone yet. And I'm like, oh my God. So I would like freak out, go up, do my thing, scared to death, hurry up and run back to my seat. Like literally that was my first experience at an acting workshop in South Florida.
Well, public speaking is a massive fear for so many people.
I didn't even have to speak that day. It was just all like ad lib, improv, like, acting like you're making brownies or something. And I was scared to death being in front of people, being judged, being looked at. What are they looking at? I'm not good enough, whatever.
Right.
At the end of that day, Miss Linda Zern walked up to me after everybody left and she was like, hey, do you want to be here? And I'm like, yeah, I want to be here. And she's like, doesn't seem like it, and she got real stern with me and she was like, I'll just give you your money back and you don't have to come back tomorrow because it just seems like you don't want to be here. And I was like, but no, I really do want to be here. And she's like, okay, well, come back tomorrow and be better. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And she handed me my script that I had to memorize, which was a Hyundai commercial, car commercial. That one did have dialogue. So she handed me that and I went home and I just prayed. I prayed and I was just like, God, I really want to do this, but I need help because I can't do this without you. I'm so scared.
Were you naturally introverted growing up?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Like shy as a little kid. Like if my mom took me to a daycare or dropped me off somewhere, I was scared to death. Like I didn't want to leave her side. I don't know why.
Okay.
Because I'm the most independent person there is now.
Right.
But when I was little, I don't know what it was.
Interesting.
But so I came back the next day. I memorized my commercial script that I had. Came back the next day. Had to go up in front of the class, and there's a chair in front of everybody and I have to do my commercial. And I did it.
Yeah.
And she just looked at me and she was like, what happened? What happened to you? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're the most improved student I've ever seen, I've ever had. And I was like, I just really want to do this. I want to do this. And she was like, okay. So
she pushed you out of your comfort zone.
She did.
And you just decided that I
had to do
this.
it.
Yeah.
I had to be there. And so I was probably about 26, 27. And then a couple years later, maybe a year or two later, I booked commercials for Hyundai dealership where I worked with them for a year. I was on 20 billboards. I was in newspaper ads back when they had those.
Coincidentally, Hyundai.
I flew to Alabama and shot their commercials all the time and had a big contract with them. And
that's awesome.
it feels good to push past your fear and like just do it. Put yourself out there. You don't know what you're going to miss out on if you don't try.
Listen, nothing grows in the comfort zone.
Nothing at all. And I was petrified. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Right.
And it's just funny because like people look at me and they think, well, you're pretty, you're this, you're that. Of course you can do it. Well, don't judge people by how they look, you know?
That might open the door.
It opens the door,
It
but you still gotta
Right.
show up.
Right. There's all those other stuff that comes into it. It's like, to me, it's like, I mean, we've both been single for a while. It's like dating, you know, you might meet an attractive guy and that might open the door, but how far does it go after that? It's like the guy starts talking and you're like, man, I'm out of here, you know? So it's
Gotta
kind
have
of
substance.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. It's accountability, it's work ethic. What are some of the success principles that you would say that you, let's say that maybe you see people that don't succeed or that don't do well. What are some of the things that you see that they could improve on dramatically?
I think they give up too easily. They don't realize that you just got to keep at it. You got to have that perseverance. You got to keep at it. And you got to take the workshops. You got to take the classes. You got to network. You got to meet people. You just got to keep going like any other job, like your job, like sales or anything else out there. You've got to keep going.
Sure.
Of course, you're going to have your days where you're tired and you're exhausted and you're like, forget it. I'm going to quit. I'm done. I'm done. And I had something happened not too long ago, about a year ago, where I reached out to this new agent in Florida because one of my friends, Bill, he's booking a ton of film, a lot of Netflix films, and he's just in a lot of these really cool. He was in Where the Crawdads Sing and Bloodline, and on and on and on. He's got this incredible resume, and he's the sweetest person, and he's from Kentucky, so that's probably why we're friends. But I wrote him, and I was like, hey, who do I get with? Who's your agent? That's where the networking comes in. And, people aren't just going to throw out names to anybody. Like, you got to prove yourself that you're good, prove that you are good and you are worthy of this.
They're putting their credibility on the line.
Exactly. And I do that too for people, but only if I think that, it's my name too.
Right. Totally.
So he gave me an email address for his agent, and I wrote them. And you know what? This is the first time this has ever happened to me in 25 something years, but she just emailed me back and she said, I'll pass. That was it. That was the email response that I got. And it hurt me. It hurt my feelings. I'm like, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm too old now. Maybe they don't want somebody that looks like me. Maybe I should try something else. Maybe I should move on.
Yeah, you start wondering.
Well, maybe I should do real estate. Maybe my grandpa was right. Like all these things going through my head. I'm like, wow, like it really hurt my The next day, another agent in Tampa called me and said, hey, It Cosmetics wants to book you. And I'm like, It Cosmetics? That's my favorite makeup brand that I've been wearing for like 5 years now. And what? What? So yeah, I booked It Cosmetics, and they flew me to New York and put me up for 3 shoots.
So it happens just that quickly.
It's overnight. And sometimes, so one of my favorite shows on Netflix is Schitt's Creek. It's absolutely hysterical. And okay, there's a lot of cussing and this and that, because I told my mom to watch it. She called me one day, what should I watch on Netflix that's funny? And I'm like, Schitt's Creek. So she texts me, she's like, well, the language. But she's like, I was dying, like crying. I was laughing so hard. I'm like, it's hilarious. But the girl that plays Alexa, is it Alexa or Alexis? Alexis. It's Alexis. She had been auditioning for like 10 years and was ready to give up. And then that's the one that she booked. And that's how it happens sometimes. So you never know. Stay in there. I feel like a lot of women my age, which, I'm in my late 40s now. I feel like a lot of people my age, they have children, they're busy, they move on, they do other things. That's great. That opens the door up for the rest of us.
Less competition.
So it's a little bit less, but also it's a little bit harder now. As Raphael probably knows that everything is video submission now. So now instead of me driving to Miami, which I would drive every single day, drop my daughter off at daycare or school.
To go audition and
drive
stuff.
an hour and a half to Miami, wait for 1, 2, 3 hours to go in for my 2 minutes of my audition time.
Wow, that's crazy.
And there might be 20, 50, 100 girls in the waiting room. Well, now that it's all video submission, people can submit from all over the country, all over the world.
Right.
So that's opened it up for everybody.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
now
Yeah, a little tougher
you
now.
have to be really good at what you're doing because they're seeing so many people.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a lot different now.
Well, the other thing I always like to say in something like this is the Pareto rule is 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work in your
Yeah.
industry. You know,
Yes.
20% of the people turn out to be, you know, I don't know, Slash from Guns N' Roses. I don't know why that comes to mind, but you know, there's a lot of guitar players out there, but 20% of the guys are going to make 80% of the money.
You know why? Because they're the people that put in the work and the time and network. They love what they do. They're good at what they do.
Well, I think
They
there's
show up.
probably some natural talent there. They probably,
yeah, you
they
have to
probably
be.
love what they do.
And you know what? And people got to like you.
Sure.
I feel like I book jobs sometimes not because I'm the prettiest, smartest, best, because they like working with me.
It's 100% true.
Because I'm easy to work with. It's so funny to me. Like I did a shoot in Nashville 6 months ago for a hotel, a really gorgeous hotel there. And of course I show up early. I'm all excited to do my job, you know. And the makeup artist, they flew in from New York. He was awesome. He's touching up my makeup and he's like, "How long have you been doing this?" And I'm like, 25 years or more. And he's like, you're just like, you're so happy and you're just radiating joy. And like, it's so wonderful. I think he thought that I was new because of how I was acting. And I'm like, no, I've been doing this forever. I just
Right.
get really excited when I book jobs. Like I still, to this day, I'm like, oh,
You're
they
doing
picked
something.
me?
Yeah, you're doing something you love.
They picked me out of all these people?
Right.
Okay. It still amazes me. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, sometimes I'm still shocked that I book the jobs that I do. I really am surprised by it sometimes.
Well, I mean, the one thing you touched on that I want to kind of circle back around on, and I learned this from BNI, which is a professional organization for networking.
I've heard of that.
I remember this vividly the first time I heard it. People do business with who they know, who they like, and who they trust. And so,
Yeah,
you know, those are
exactly.
really important things. So you got to know somebody, and it's one thing for you to know Bob, the agent. It's a very different thing for Bob, the agent, to know you. It's a very different thing. You know, there's a
Right.
lot of people say, "Oh, I know so and so." Well, do they know you? Like, do
Yeah.
they know you? Do they know, like, and trust you? So that's
That has a lot to do with it.
it totally does. I mean, that's every line of work. Your work, apparently, sales for sure, owning a business. Do people work with me? Do they know, like, and trust me? You know, there's
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Because
You have a great reputation around town. Everybody loves you, Brian.
well, I appreciate that. Not everybody. Not everybody.
Oh, well, the people I talk to do.
yeah. But you know what?
Not
The people.
everybody's going to like you. That would be weird.
Yeah, that would be weird. And you know what? The people that don't like me, I give them love too. I wish them great success.
It's okay. Yeah, that's all right.
So I think there's two different ways to look at that. It used to the hate that, or the vitriol of the, you know, one of my favorite memes that I've seen out there. It's like, you know, when you hear a story about yourself, you're like, oh, really? What happened next? What did I do? Like, whoa, that's.
Well, I didn't know that.
I'm an alcoholic. Okay, I hadn't heard that before. But you know, at the end of the day, it's like I used to take that hate, and it would like that's fuel for my fire because I'm a winner. Like, go please, somebody talk bad about me because that just drives me. But then I had
Watch
to
me.
well, there's
That's what I like to say.
definitely that. But I had to change. I believe that I've done a lot of work in the last probably year and a half I've really worked on changing my energy towards those people.
Towards the negative people or the
Towards
positive?
the negative people, to where I truly, people that have done me wrong, people that have said stuff, like people that are acquaintances that have talked bad about me, they don't even know I know because I don't even bring it up. I just wish people the best. I just,
Yeah.
you know, and I want to send out that energy. I want to
Yeah.
create that energy. And for the people that talk bad about me or other people, because especially in your line of work, you're going to have a lot of trash talk, I'm guessing, a lot of cattiness. It seems like there would be that.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I don't know. I've worked with some really wonderful people.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm just,
Yeah.
maybe
No,
that's
but
just
yeah.
a generalization that I'm thinking, you know.
Well, it's interesting. Like people used to say, like David Caruso from CSI, oh, he's not a nice guy. He's a jerk. I'm like, really? How do you know? You know, I'm like, I worked with him for 3 years. He was incredibly respectful and kind to me. Always asked about my daughter. said I looked like his daughter's best friend, Kiki. I was like, who's that? He goes, Kirsten Dunst. I'm like, oh yeah, Kirsten Dunst, but very sweet. People said that about Tom Cruise. He was a jerk. I'm like,
Anybody can say
no,
anything.
I mean, I thought he was nice.
Yeah.
Catherine Zeta-Jones, like I've met a lot of these people that people say, and I go, well, they're people too. Maybe they had a bad day.
Sure.
And you do realize like when they're working. So like if they don't talk to you or they're rude to you, they're memorizing their lines. They're like, they got other stuff going on.
Yeah.
You got to understand that too. And I try to give, like I try to give people the benefit of the doubt now that I'm older and I realize like,
Sure.
what are they going through?
been
Something
a
must
bad
have
day.
happened.
Give people grace a little
You
bit
know
more.
what?
Yeah.
Whatever. I have bad days too. So I'm going to let that slide. You keep doing it. That's a problem, but
Right.
Everybody's allowed to have bad days. And if they say something, but I don't like when people talk bad about other people. I'm like, I want to make up my own decision about that person.
Right.
Just because you like them doesn't mean I won't like them. And I'm telling you, 99% of the time, I usually like the person that those other people are like, no, that's a bad, stay away from that person. And I'm
Right.
like, I guess that's a you thing because I tend to like most people,
Right.
but I get grumpy like Raphael.
Well, you're also more of a critical thinker. I know you pretty well at that point with a lot
Common
of different
sense.
things.
I didn't go to college and I barely graduated high school. They put me on the front row because my dad taught at my high school. That's the only reason I was up there. But other than that, I don't even honestly know how I passed, to be honest.
Yeah.
It wasn't interesting to me. But I think that's the other thing for your kids. You got to find something that is interesting for them.
Right.
Not everybody learns the same way. Not everybody wants to do the same things.
Sure.
Like my daughter is completely different from me, and that's okay. She's a worker bee. She's a manager. She's a boss. Like that's her. That is not me. I cannot do a 9 to 5.
Right. And she needs to be in a field that uses her strengths. And she's going to be
absolutely.
best using her strengths.
She's
you know?
awesome. She's smart. She's the smart one in the family.
Awesome. Well, we'll jump right into it. I know we could sit here all day and yap away. I could tell.
I know.
But so basically, your topic is 5 things that
I know. I had to write them down.
Go ahead.
Does
Yeah.
anybody else write them down on
Everybody
a notebook?
writes them down, actually. Almost everybody.
I'm not good with like digital. No, I like to handwrite stuff.
Yeah.
I'm old school. Like people do their invoice. No, I write my stuff down in a
Whatever
book.
works for you,
and-
yeah.
Yeah, whatever. So yeah, my 5 things.
All right, go for it. Let's hear it. Number 1.
So this is about getting into modeling and acting.
Sure.
Right. So the first one is, like we talked about earlier, is you don't know until you try. I only wanted to model. When I started this, I only wanted to model. I didn't want to talk at all. After about being with my first agency, which is Stellar, model and talent agency in Miami, who I'm still with. I love them. They're awesome. They've given me amazing opportunities. But I would not go on auditions that had any speaking or dialogue. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And finally, Cindy, the owner of the agency, she was like, Amy, you are doing this. Like, you're doing it. Just go,
Right.
do it. And I was like, I really don't want to. And she's like, you're going. And so I was horrible for several auditions. I was absolutely horrible. And but I kept going. I kept showing up. The casting directors kept seeing me, which is remarkable because, there's only so many time slots, used to be, so many time slots. You can only fit so many, actors in
Sure.
those. Say you got a 10-15, a 10-20, a 10-20, that's it.
You're only going to get so many shots to impress them
So
before they know that name.
And they kept bringing me in, so I guess they saw something,
Okay.
and thank God for that. So that's the number one thing is like you don't know until you try. I only wanted to do modeling, but then I started doing commercials. Then I started being a spokesperson. Then I did voiceovers. Then I hosted a show for Carnival and Princess Cruise Lines for a year. So it just
Evolved.
snowballed into all of these things because I just kept showing up and trying. Actually, one of the first jobs I had speaking on camera was it was a 1-hour show that we talked about products. It was like 10 to 15 products that we would have on this show. I had never done it before. In my life, I had never done anything like that. It was almost like a home shopping network thing.
Okay.
Except it wasn't live, and I had to memorize all these scripts and all these products.
boy.
There's no teleprompter. Anyway, a friend was like, hey, you need to audition for this show. And I'm like, it's called Living in Style. And I'm like, I don't know how to host a show. What are you talking about? This was like 15, 16, 17 years ago.
Right.
I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how to do that. And he's like, well, I think you'd be really good at it. Because he worked at the company.
Okay.
You know, we were shooting these little cheap commercials.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay.
Give it a whirl. Yeah.
I'll try it. I auditioned for it. Was awful. And I was like, okay, but I'll do it for like half the price that you'll pay anybody else. And they were like, hired, you know? So they hired me.
Negotiated.
And that was, as I said before, that was like, not only didn't really make any money, but it was a training. I felt like I was getting paid.
You're getting paid to learn how to do that.
How to host a show. And I
Right.
did it for a year. So that's that. You don't know until you try, till you put yourself, you have no clue what you're
Right.
capable of. So that's my number one thing. Number two is you can start anytime. You know, you're never too young or too old to start in this industry. A couple of my clients, because I do coaching for people that want to get into modeling and acting, and a couple of my clients are retired. They're retired and they've just always wanted to do this.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I worked with a couple of guys and women, and the guys are like, they're killing it. Like, they love it. They're having the time of their life and they're booking jobs. One of the guys that I just worked with, I taped his very first audition for a commercial and he booked it. And I was just like, okay, don't get used to this because that's not normal. But for men, salt and pepper hair, good looking, good shape, whatever. He's working all the time now.
That's awesome.
And he's 55. The other guy was in his 60s. They're having a blast and like it makes me so happy. But kids as well. Obviously, I usually work with kids that are like anywhere from 8 to 12 years old, and then a lot of teens that want to get into it.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's never too soon or too late.
Okay.
You can do this at any time, which is, I think, the most exciting
That
part
is cool, yeah.
about this industry. And I don't know if you know, like, you know, say Julia Child didn't have her first show until she was 50.
Well, like Samuel Jackson, I believe, got started real late. Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
You know, seems like it.
several of
Or they
them.
never really popped till they got older. That's kind of my
Exactly.
impression.
Some of these people have been around forever. You just didn't know it.
You know, I was watching, for some reason, I don't remember what it was, but I was watching an old school Star Trek, just killing time. And there was Jim Carrey on the
No.
radar operator for a Navy ship. And I'm like, is that Jim Carrey?
Oh my gosh.
Or if you go back to Dirty Harry, he was doing the Guns N' Roses. He was an actor that got overdosed in a beginning of a Dirty Harry was Jim Carrey. So
No
anyway,
way.
it's just when you go back and watch some of these old shows, you're like,
They put in the time.
oh yeah, they were grinding, doing
Kevin
the small
Costner,
parts.
his first thing was an extra and he got cut out, you know, of his first part or whatever. Now look at him now. He's Yellowstone or whatever.
Yeah.
But I love Jim Carrey. He's one of my favorite actors. Dumb and Dumber and Pet Detective
funny.
are two of my favorite movies
Classics,
ever.
yeah.
But his other movies, his Truman Show, I could go on
Yeah,
and on about
sure.
him. He's one of my favorites. But that dude, and he's a perfectionist. He'll do like 20 takes.
Got a great
you know.
story, you know.
Anyway, but so moving on, number 3. Oh, you don't have to have professional pictures to get started, but eventually you will need them. So that's something that I teach people too about, you know, just taking iPhone photos when you're first starting out. You don't need to spend a lot of money right away, especially if you're not sure if you want to do this or not. Yeah, you can go out and get some beautiful, great pictures, spend $400, $500, $600, sometimes more, up to
Right.
$1,000 or more for modeling. But if you're not real sure, don't do that yet. So that's one thing I would
Okay.
say. You don't have to get the professional photos right away.
Well, especially with the cameras nowadays
Oh
are
my
pretty
gosh,
amazing on your
well,
iPhone.
iPhone. I
And
mean,
all of the phones really.
yeah, they're incredible, and you just don't want to edit too much. You want to definitely look like yourself.
Sure.
That's a big thing. Modeling's different. Acting, you need to look like your photo when you show up, or they're gonna not be happy with you. Like, okay, so you don't have the Snapchat filter on. Where's the filter on your skin and your face? Like, you don't want that. So let's see here. Number 4. You don't have to be a certain size or be a supermodel. The industry has changed a lot. There's a lot more diversity. So this is wonderful for a lot of reasons. Like, you used to have to be 5'8", you know, and a size for lifestyle modeling, which is what I do. I'm a lifestyle model. Size 2 to 6, and I'm like right on that edge of like a size 6. I'm like teetering right there. And even a few years ago, I remember a friend
Too
telling
many
me,
trips to Food Lion for the muffins.
you know what? I eat brownies.
I'm giving you a hard time.
I like to eat a lot. I've always been like that. So that was one thing I was worried about starting out. I'm like, how am I going to do this? Because I like to eat a lot of food. This is going to be hard. So like, sometimes I got to diet for some of the jobs that not diet, but eat less and work out more. Obviously, it's not hard. It's not hard. It's not rocket science here.
Right.
But, you got to do what you got to do.
Discipline.
Okay.
Yeah.
But size 6, is like lifestyle. Size 8 used to be a plus size model. A size 8 is a plus size model, which to me is bizarre. But anyway, I was doing a shoot with a fashion model friend that turned into a photographer in Miami. And he was like, you could be like a plus size model. And I was like, boy, those are fighting words. This was like, I was even like 5 or 10 pounds thinner then. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, I'm not being mean. I'm just saying you got like a fuller face. You're curvy. You could be a really good plus size model. And I was like, I don't know how to take that. But now, since the industry has changed so much, it's a great time to be a plus size model. I almost want to like gain weight so I can be a plus size model because they're the ones that are killing it right now. Size 12 to 20 or whatever, they are absolutely killing it. You don't have to be 5'8". For fashion, you still have to be taller, but lifestyle, you can be, 5'5", 5'6", whatever. It's all over the place now, which is really cool. And like we talked about with age, that's wide open now too. So it's really a great time.
It's a great time if you've ever thought about it. It's a great time to really look into it.
It really is. If you got the gray hair, the salt and pepper hair, anything that makes you stand out and just be you, I would say too. Like don't try to change your look to fit into this. No, they want you. They want who you are naturally.
Right.
Your personality, this is the way I look. This is the way I've looked for, 40, almost 46 years. This is how I look. And you know what they say when the clients book me for a job? Come looking like your photos. We want your hair the same way. We want your clothes. We want all of it. We want that. So don't go and try to change yourself to like, now obviously, as Raphael knows too, like when you're auditioning for a certain role, of course, if I'm auditioning to play some other kind of character, of course, you want to change for that.
Sure.
But we're just talking about in general, just be you.
Right.
So that's one thing. And my last thing here is invest in yourself. Take workshops, classes, watch YouTube videos. There are a million YouTube videos out there about, how to set up your, because you have to self-tape at home. So there's a million videos on how to do that. Lighting, sound, all that kind of stuff. And take my coaching and my workshops because honestly, at the end of the day, I don't want to work with anybody that doesn't really want to do this and isn't really excited about it. And also, I want people to succeed. I want them to be happy and have fun. These guys that are working all the time now, like, it makes me so happy to see that. They put in the work though.
Right.
They put in the time. They got the photos. They take the classes. They do what I tell them to do. And it's paying off. So I just want to say you have to invest in yourself. Yeah, it's an investment. It's a commitment. It might seem like a lot of money to some people. I'm like, really? When I was starting out, again, no money. Even back then, I was paying $400 for headshots. And then I had to pay another $300 to get them printed because back then we had hard copies. When we went on an audition,
then
we
had to send them.
We had to hand in our headshots every time we went on an audition.
Right.
So I'm already out $1,000 right there.
Right.
Plus driving to Miami, all the blah, blah,
All that
whatever,
stuff, yeah.
wardrobe, makeup, hair, whatever. But you're going to make it back. So, a coaching session, my packages, you will make that back in 1 or 2 jobs.
Well, the thing about it is too, and this, I love this saying is if you're going to go through a minefield, follow somebody. You don't have to blow your leg off. Just walk behind somebody who's been there and done that. And then the second thing to that is, there's a lot of stories when you go back, and the first one that comes to mind is Prince. Now, Prince was unbelievably talented, but Prince had someone that discovered him.
Yes.
And really groomed him and helped him kind of break into the music industry.
Music industry is a whole nother beast.
Well, it's a different animal, but at the end of the day, it's like when you get somebody that has been doing something for, if you got into the security industry, for example, or you want to start a security company and you come to me, like I got 25 years of doing this. I can tell you exactly what to do, what not to do, workman's comp stuff. Like I could give you a roadmap to save yourself a decade.
That's right.
And it's probably no different with you.
And that's the thing. Like, man, where would I be if I had somebody helping me when I was 19 years old?
Right.
I didn't have anybody.
Ditto.
I had,
Yeah.
and my parents, God bless them, God love them, but they had no clue.
They didn't know the teachers.
They had no clue.
They know how to teach.
And they're wonderful
They
at
could have
that.
taught you to be a great teacher, probably.
You know what? My dad
that's
taught
their
me about
experience.
Jesus, and that's the best thing that I ever
All
learned
right.
in my life.
There you
So
go.
I'm thankful for that. But if I had some kind of mentor, somebody helping me,
Sure.
where could I have gone? Now, I will say, I don't know how much time we have here, but I will say that I did have people as in Miami that did help me.
Sure.
A guy that I met in that workshop took me to Stellar. He took me to his agency. That's how they had to want me. I couldn't just
Sure.
walk in and
Sure.
sign me. They signed me.
But that comes back to networking. That was not necessarily a
Networking.
mentorship
Because
role.
I paid all that money to take that class, I got my first agent, and I'm still working with them. After that, Brad Davis at Marquee Casting in Miami, God bless him. I love him so much. He brought me in one day on a Saturday and said, come in here. I want you to book this job. And he worked with me for 2 hours. I was like, why are you doing this? Just want to help you.
That's awesome.
Didn't charge me any money. Didn't ask for anything. Nothing. Just helped me. And I just, Lori Wyman, big casting director in Miami. She did Miami Vice and tons of movies, whatever. She's a big casting director. I took one of her workshops one weekend. I was scared to death of her. She was one of those ladies. And I'm like, oh my God, is she going to yell
Powerful,
at me?
yeah.
I'm so scared around her.
Right.
But nothing she did, but she was just a strong, powerful, intimidating woman to me.
Right.
And, but she wanted me to succeed. I'll just say real quick. I took one of her workshops, 10, 12 people in the acting class. I didn't think I was any good. I was just like, whatever, I'm just taking this so Lori books me on jobs, and I'm not any good at this. But we would do our sides. We had to go out in the hall, memorize, come back in and do our little scene or whatever. And then she says to everybody in the class, everybody close your eyes. Raise your hand if you think Brian was the best one in the class. Okay, raise my hand. Raise your hand if you think, Emily was the best one. Everybody has their eyes closed. Then she's like, okay, everybody open their eyes. She goes, Amy, why didn't you raise your hand for yourself? And I was like, I don't know. What do you mean? She goes, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. You're one of the best ones in here. You should have raised your hand for yourself.
Interesting.
And
yeah.
I was like, I didn't know we were allowed to. I thought we were supposed to pick somebody else. But those words stuck with me to this day.
Sure.
I probably took that class 15 years ago. And I was like, she's right. If I don't believe in me, nobody else is going to believe in me.
Yeah.
But which is weird to me because I booked all these jobs, not always having the most confidence, but I still booked them.
Yeah.
And the Blackwater film that we were talking about, that was a film. They auditioned girls all up and down the coast of South Florida. I didn't know that. I thought they were I didn't know that.
Right.
So I went to audition for it, totally not prepared, but the director liked me. We talked about Kentucky. We talked about fishing and hunting and whatever. He just liked me.
Right.
Because let me tell you, the other girl, Misty, that auditioned for it, when she walked up, I was like, oh, there's no way I'm not getting this. She looks like a freaking Barbie doll. She's stunning.
But you
Stunning.
were more the part for that director, probably.
He just liked me, and then my friend Judy, she's my gorgeous Jamaican actress model friend in Miami. She's like, you're just as pretty as her. What are you talking about? What do you, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't see myself as this person, but you know what? Put yourself out there. You just don't even know what can
work
happen.
hard, put yourself out there and see what happens.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you're loving it, love the journey,
Put in the work, take my workshop, take my classes. I have a modeling workshop coming up March 5th.
Okay.
In Durham. I'm really excited about that because I truly do enjoy helping these people. It's awesome for me. And then I'm just doing coaching, online coaching. People can call me and I'll help them every step of the way and get them going. And then if they
Awesome.
get rich and famous, You better remember me.
Hook a sister up.
I want 10%. No, I'm kidding. It's 20% now. Shoot. The Asians get 20% now, except for union. That's still 10%.
All right. Well, we'll get your information, throw it up there, and people can follow you. I know on Instagram, YouTube, you've got a channel, I believe.
Yeah, unfortunately, my Instagram got hacked.
Oh, that's right.
I lost my 30,000 followers that I had, so I had to start over.
That's a bummer.
But Instagram, the Amy Simon TV. Facebook's just Amy Simon. My website is amysimon.tv. Everything is Amy Simon TV. I started that a while ago. I don't know why I went with that. I guess for like TV hosting or whatever.
Sure.
And now other people are doing it, but I did it first. But anyway, I really appreciate this.
No, awesome.
And I have a lot of respect for you, and
I appreciate that.
thank you for
Overdue. This was overdue.
long overdue.
I'm happy to get this out there and excited to share this with people. And when you're ready to get into acting, and whether it's a side hustle or career you want to pursue, now you know what the first step is. You know, the greatest thing you can do for any journey is take the first step.
Absolutely. And not only for modeling and acting, I believe my coaching is for people that just want confidence in front of the camera. A lot of stuff is Zoom calls and all these things now. So just having that confidence in front of the camera, I can help you with that too.
Awesome. Well, you know where to go. Well, thanks again, Amy. And thank you for joining us for another 5 Things podcast. We'll see you next time.
Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.